Hi folks, welcome to Proof Mentor. In this video session, you'll be learning the end-to-end purchasing process in SAP. You might be wondering, why a performance tester need to understand the process, right? There are two main reasons as to why you need to know the process before you performance test an application, right? Reason number one, as part of this requirement gathering phase, you will have to interact with a lot of functional and a lot of business stakeholders, right? So while you are having that conversation, you need to understand the high level business process. Only then you can ask the right questions and get the right input from them. So for that reason, you need to know at a high level what is the business process that we are going to do performance testing for. And the second reason is sometimes, when you're doing testing, right, when you're performance testing, you might hit a performance problem. And when that happens, you should be able to understand how impactful this particular high response time or whatever it is, right, is going to have for the business. For these two reasons, you need to know the high level business process before you get into the testing. So in this chapter, we'll be covering the end-to-end purchasing process in SAP. So in this purchasing activity, right, there are two key players. So let's take an example of an XYZ company who sells the product to the customers through different channels, right? In order for them to sell the product to the customer, they need to procure the products from particular company or entity, right? So let's see what are those two players, right? One is the company, which is the buying company, buyer. Let's call them as buyer. And the company from which we are going to buy the product, right? Those we can call it as the vendor or the supplier. So these are the two players who's going to play a role in this entire purchasing process. So the first step in this process is the purchase requisition. Purchase requisition is something that happens within the organization, within the buyer company. So what happens is the store associate, while managing the inventory, if he sees some of the inventories are very low, he will make a request to the buying department within the organization through a process called purchase requisition. So it's an internal process within the organization for managing the inventory. So they will send a request, these are the products and these are the quantities that I want, and the store associate will send that request to the buying department. The buying department will review that request and approve or reject that request. So all these things are managed by a process called purchase requisition, and this purchase requisition will create a purchase requisition number. Okay, and following this process, we have the purchase order process. Purchase order is nothing but a legally binding document, right? So the buying company will send a request to the vendor or the supplier. So these are the products that I want, these are the quantity that I want, and this is the price. This is the quotation, right? The supplier would have already given the quotation, so they will mention the price as well in that particular purchase order number, and they will send this purchase order to the supplier through an email or through fax or through the direct email, right? Physical copy, they can send an email. So with one of these means, they will send that request to the supplier or the vendor. Once it reaches to the supplier or vendor, right, it goes to the next process called the inbound delivery. So in inbound delivery, what happens is the supplier or vendor will send an advance notification to this company saying, I'm going to supply all these products on this particular date. So that's what that information is passed through a process called the inbound delivery. And following that inbound delivery, right, the next process is the goods receipt. In goods receipt, there are two steps. We can break it down into two steps. One is the rough goods receipt and the other one is the detailed goods receipt. Goods receipt is nothing but once the truck reaches the company's warehouse, they will have to verify if all the materials have reached their warehouse, right? So they will manage that activity in two processes. Rough goods receipt is nothing but they will just scan the cartons and unload it from the truck and they are done, right? So that's called rough goods receipt. And following the rough goods receipt, we have the detailed goods receipt, where the associate will scan each individual product and add it to the company's inventory. So that process is managed by an activity called detailed goods receipt. So following this detailed goods receipt, we'll have all those items added to our inventory, company's inventory. And following this goods receipt process, we have the invoice verification. And invoice verification is nothing but the store associate will compare the purchase order and the DGR, and if it matches, it will trigger a request for payment processing. So we have received as per our request, so now we can pay the money back to the supplier or the vendor. So those things are managed through the payment processing. So this is the end-to-end process involved in purchasing. And in performance testing, you need to understand this flow, you need to script this flow, and how to use it for the simulation, load simulation. And these are some of the key scenarios that you have to test it for sure. So hope this video was useful to you. If you want to get more such contents, like and subscribe our channel. And if you are someone who is looking for a personalized tutor to learn performance testing, feel free to reach out to me. Thank you.